What's poppin'? It's your boy Shy Ill, and we are back at it with Surviving El Chapo Season 2, Episode 8. This one's titled Freedom. The last words of, what's-his-face, Mel Gibson and Braveheart. If you have yet to subscribe to the channel, please do. Please hit the like button and the notification bell so that we can keep this channel moving forward. Freedom.
I think that everyone been in prison for a while, like they have a lot of struggles. It's hard, man, to adapt to your new life, especially when you have identity crisis or you're not. We used to be, you disassociate yourself with so much of your past, and then, you know, for me, now I'm here, but now I'm dealing with a whole new, set of issues.
A lot of people have been complaining about the twins' voice. Yeah, they talk low and stuff like that, but the audio's just been inconsistent on how they recorded. Throughout all the different times, you got somebody different micing you, different equipment, different this, that, the other. It's just mad inconsistent. It's hard to understand what they're saying sometimes.
The Flores twins spent 8 months trying to get El Chapo on tape while they were running drugs for him in Mexico. They handed themselves into authorities and then spent the next 10 years cooperating for the government in prison.
Then it was 2 long days on the witness stand.
Finally, El Chapo was sent to prison for life plus 30 years.
Everything the twins had worked toward for over a decade, trying to turn their lives around, culminated at this moment. And it was finally over. For the first time in their lives, they could look forward to their happily ever after. An honest life outside of the world of peddling kilos or the bars of a prison cell. But what does that actually mean for 2 people whose introduction to the drug life began at 7 years old? The cooperation was over, and at 38, the brothers only had 2 years left until they would finally be free.
The government no longer needed them, so their protection as high-profile witnesses was over. After what they had gone through over 10 years, another 2 might seem easy. But there was one challenge. None of us saw it coming. COVID.
Was the last 2 years any different for you?
Miserable.
Really?
Because I continued to fight to go home. And then COVID hit. We're on 24-hour lockdown. We're just on lockdown indefinitely. Like, we'll let you out when we think it's safe. And you're like, how could they do that? It was kind of like ridiculous to think that we've been on segregated, set apart from the society for safety reasons. And that COVID hit, right? But we're COVID-free. We ain't never been around anyone exposed to COVID. So the only people that have been exposed to COVID are the guards. And that's the only way to get it in, is that they're gonna bring it into us. So they get to go home every day and come back, go home, come back, but we're stuck in the cell. And you're back captive again. You're hungry. You're just in that cell, And I'll write letters to my wife, feeling miserable about what she was dealing with on her own. I can't explain to you what it's like to do that, to write letters. Writing so many letters, and if I didn't get the mail, they didn't write to me, I feel so sick. My anxiety would be so horrible if I didn't hear from her. Think at least, that she was okay and the kids were okay. And then the worst part is that these piece of shit CEOs was like, do you have to write a book every day? Like, man, do your fucking job, man, Take my fucking mail and put it in the mailbox, if you don't want to read it. Are you serious? We're in fucking lockdown in COVID. We have no access to the phone. We can't call our family.
You tell him, he must have never been in love before, CO.
And you're gonna fucking talk shit about me writing a letter? This is my fucking right to write a letter, for my children, we're worried, and you can't call home and check on them. And my mom and everyone.
COVID was bad enough for people on the outside. I could just imagine, and not just for the twins, but for anybody on the inside. And the countless people that I'm sure died, in the corner of a cold cell or a cold cell block or pod, wheezing till he can't breathe no more, I'm sure it happened to plenty of people. I don't know. I might not get monetized simply for saying the word C. Ovid, but It is what it is. Freedom of speech, right?
I wasn't allowed to see them till like October for 1 hour behind like a plastic shower curtain.
Prisoners nationwide were stopped from seeing any visitors from March 2020, when COVID first hit the world. When Pete was finally able to have his family visit, 7 months later, it had to be done through a plastic shower curtain, and their time together was limited to an hour. On the other side of the country, COVID had hit Jay's prison early on, so Val applied for compassionate release, hoping he would be allowed to serve his final months under home confinement. The compassionate release was denied. The twins were not eligible for home confinement for safety reasons.
The last few months seemed longer than some of the time I was like there. And, you know, with COVID, it's just kind of like made everything a little bit harder. In any other situation, I would have been home already. Like, because of my situation, I wasn't like privileged to some of the opportunities that regular inmates had, like a happy house or home confinement or anything like that. So any other time I would have been home already. But
we filed for compassionate release just because in the prison he was at, COVID was already there and there was already like inmates and staff that had it. And
this was, you know, early on, right? You don't know nothing about COVID.
Yeah, and it was scary.
Around the same time, Jay started to feel sick, but none of the prison guards believed him. They thought he was faking his illness.
Jeez, to the police, you can't even die and it be the truth. You know, I don't know if y'all, you know, a lot of you people that watch my Cartel content don't watch the other content that I was doing, which is basically dumb criminals and dumb cops. You can't even die in front of the police and them believe you. That's how bad it's gotten. These dudes be dying in front of the police. Police looking at them talking about stop bullshitting. Like, what? Are you people crazy? And then they got an excuse and a reason why they just watch somebody die like that. Like, bruh, whether I'm faking or I'm not faking, take it serious and be on your P's and Q's. If you worried that I'm faking it to try to get at you or do this or that, cool. Take me serious, but be on your P's and Q's. That's it. Don't just deny somebody that's telling you they're sick medical attention and now they die on your watch.
Because his compassionate release had been denied.
It was hard. I was so thankful for not being sick, for being healthy most of my time in prison.
It was probably one of the hardest times of just not knowing, especially the whole time that he was in prison. It's like we were there every weekend. And then when COVID hit, we couldn't see him for the last year. And he ended up getting sick during that time.
You know, for me to get to that point and then being sick, especially during COVID, it just made everything even harder.
They must have thought that because it was around the same time that we filed for compassionate release that he was like almost making it up, until like his whole face like blew up and his throat, like his airways ended up closing on him. So he was almost...
They'll watch somebody's head swell up and eyes bulge out and be like, he's faking it. How he make his head swell up though, dog? How is that even possible?
Almost incapacitated by the time they took him out of the prison. And that's how the infection got so bad, and then that's how he ended up getting sepsis.
I can imagine that must have been so
horrific. He got sepsis?
For you. What was it like for you being in a cell and struggling to breathe and not being helped?
You know what? I think just being like helpless in the cell, like, it got to a point where I couldn't, you know, like I'm shaking. I can't even tell you, like, what that last week was like because, you know, you're in pain and I'm just lost.
Jay called me one day. He couldn't, like, even speak because his face and his, like, everything was so swollen. Like, even when he was speaking, like, I couldn't really understand him. And I got into this whole rant that he needs to sign out of the program just so that way they can take him to a regular prison. That way he had the right to go to a hospital.
You know, I was in pain. I got desperate and I was trying everything. And I guess it was getting to a point where I was like not well. And, you know, the inmates, you know, people around me are just trying to take care of me. And I just don't even recall. I just know that an officer doing his rounds at night saw me. And I was unrecognizable at this point.
Yo, that's crazy.
He
really
saw me.
Swollen.
Yeah, he saw me and...
Like with your face and neck.
He saw me. He's like, hey, like, oh my, like, something that, you know, I just couldn't even, like, I wasn't taking in oxygen. I don't recall. I do know that they carried me out myself. They put me in an ambulance. And I remember the doctors being really upset.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't happen
really
in a day.
Upset.
You know, this
Why?
Because, like, what? Why wasn't he here sooner? Right. This doesn't happen in a day or 2 days. This like been going on for a long period of time. This is not acceptable. You know, I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like, listen, fix me, you know, do whatever you have to do.
They even had to transfer him to another hospital for intensive care.
Yeah, trauma unit.
So you're in intensive care?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was transferred to another hospital that could handle his case.
That's crazy.
They got lost the first few days. That those hospital beds, just not being able to talk to my family or know from them, you can't communicate. So, and they can't be there.
We didn't like even know what was going on with him, like if he was okay, if he was, you know, alive. We just knew that it was really, really bad because, like, in a prison like that, when it comes to like security purposes, they don't take you out to the hospital unless you're like almost dying. So for me...
Here's the problem. They're not doctors. So they don't know when you're almost dying until it's too late. You know what I'm saying? How many other guards didn't walk past him, look right at him and say, he's fine. Well, the one guard looked at him and he was dumbfounded at what he was looking at. Then the doctor's surprised at what they're looking at. But that just don't happen with the twins. That happens all the time. And these guards they don't get in trouble for letting people reach the brink of death or die. These dudes don't get in. They rarely get in trouble. They rarely gonna serve their time any time for watching somebody die when they got a right to some kind of medical attention, regardless what it is.
For me to know that, because Jay has to be moved with marshals, and it's like this big it takes a lot of work to move him to a hospital. So it was devastating not being able to know what was going on and speaking to the attorneys and trying to find out if my husband was okay. Because I'm like, just tell me that he's not in a coma. Tell me he's, you know, stable. Tell me something. And they couldn't. And I wanted direct access to his doctors. I needed some type of line of communication just to know he was okay. I didn't need to know what hospital he was at. I just needed to know that, you know, he was breathing. You know, he spent 56 days in the hospital. Yeah. He had 3 surgeries.
Bro.
I think, yeah, it was hard. Like, you know you're alone, right? You're in the like, people, you spend time in the shoe. And then, like, solitary, like, solitude is hard. But being sick and kind of helpless, being in the hospital where you have no one to like care for you or nurture you.
You're shackled to a bed.
Yeah, I was shackled to a bed. Like, that's hard. I do remember, like, once I started like feeling like a little bit better, like I was in pain. I had tubes going down in my throat, and so I couldn't speak. And I remember that's when you really feel that loneliness. Like, I would have all these like thoughts about, wow, like when you're like not conscious or when you're in those situations, that's when you look for that nurturing mom, right? As a baby, like I remember just having those feelings, like wow, this is why marriage and family is so important. You're supposed to have someone. We're supposed to have each other. And I think that it's just kind of like, to me, it was like, again, just a reminder, right, of what it's like to be alone. You know, and when you're in those situations, you wonder, like, I'm gonna die alone? Like, this is what it's gonna be like. So kind of going back to those times. So just going through all that and not having my family, being able to talk to them, that was very hard. Because I'm I depend a lot on my family, I depend a lot on my wife. I'm a social person, and just, not being able to talk and just being through pain and just kind of just keeping it to yourself, which a lot of people might think, well, a lot of people keep things to themselves. Thanks to my wife and thanks for me having a twin brother, I never had to keep something to myself. That was foreign to me. That I'm kind of suffering alone in a way.
Jay got an infection, which led to sepsis.
Bro, 56 days in the hospital and however many surgeries. That boy lucky to be alive, because that's crazy. That means they was watching a dead man all of that time, waiting for him to go. It's like if Chapo put the hit on him. That's crazy.
Because he was left without treatment for so long. He spent 56 days in hospital before he was eventually transferred back to prison. But he didn't stay there for long. By the time he got back, he only had a few weeks left until he was released. The twins were able to get 2 years and 2 months taken off their sentence for good behaviour, which is the maximum a federal inmate can earn off their sentence for staying out of trouble. It's around 15%. Because they received the same sentence, they were released on the same day. When they first went to prison, they spent 8 months in the SHU. Now, 12 years later, they would go to the SHU for the last time. Because of COVID, prisoners had to spend 2 weeks quarantined in the SHU before they left. On November the 5th, 2020, it was time to go home. Jay was first out.
Ain't that crazy? You about to get out, so your punishment is, if you could survive this 2 weeks in the SHU, you're good. And for you, Jay, if you could survive this sepsis, this COVID, this 56 days in the hospital, if you could survive this, we might give you an early release. Maybe, just maybe.
What was it like for you when you came out of prison? What was that day? What happened on that day?
I think it was surreal. That was like, for sure. Like, I couldn't even, of course, I didn't sleep. And as soon as the doors opened, everybody came to they had been saying goodbye. And, people came just give me letters. And I still couldn't believe it. It was emotional, believe it or not.
The homies.
I left a lot of good people behind. I think that.
So you had a lot of relationships?
Yeah, for sure. And I think,
in prison at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I guess they got used to just having me, right? As a positive, like, let me come to you for advice, or, and just...
a voice of reason.
Just, like, be there for them. And I did worry about some where I was like, damn, what are they going to do without me? And... I made a really good friend. And I was with him for 10 years. He was my cellie. And I knew he needed me. And he was there for me too. Like, I remember I used to go through them hard times, and I went through a hard situation with my family, and like, we're in the cell, and he just came and hugged me, and I remember just being emotional. And he was like one of those tough men, like, oh, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna. And then when it was time for me to go, like that day, he was like, he cried. He was like, what am I going to do without you? And it's weird because...
you can be a man!
This individual is famous for how many brothers he has. And I remember he said, I need to tell you something. Like, I've never had the relationship with my own brothers that I've had with you. And I'm really going to miss you. And I'm happy that you're going home, man. You deserve it. It was emotional. If you think about it, he was in my life every day for 10 years. That was as long as my run. So all those people that meant to me something in the street,
that I knew for within those 10 years and sometimes less, that I felt close to. You just could imagine what it was like for me to be with this, with him for 10 years. And he did have a date to come home. At that time, it was 4 years. And, there was people in there that were not coming home soon or not coming home at all. So it did kind of weigh on me. It's like bittersweet. Like, I waited for this day for so long. I'm more worried about them. Like, you're overdoing it. He would like say that. And I'm like, no, I said, you guys are gonna be all right. I just kind of give him a little speech. You guys are gonna be all right. Hugged them and...
Did you give him a little speech?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I thanked him for everything because I think that you depend. That's your family. And I'm a family man. We have our own little group where it's like that you kind of live with every day, that you depend on, you form this bond. And
you're human. You ain't got no choice.
I had begged the staff there, like, please come get me early. Like, don't take your time. They're like, you're going to go home. We're going to be here at 8. And they said, your wife is not going to be on time. We're not doing that. I said, listen, yes, she is. I said, listen, I waited a long time for this, please. And they came for me early. They came probably a little bit before 6 a.m.
Was wifey there on time? Is the question. Because they seem to know a pattern we don't know about. Or they was just assuming. And
they let me say goodbye to everybody. And just walking down the highway, I just couldn't, I was emotional for sure. Like goosebumps all over my body. Just, even when it was time for me to sign all the paperwork, I was like, wow, this is really gonna happen. And I'll never forget, after I signed the paperwork, they're like, go ahead, call your wife, see if she's here. I was like, excuse me? They call your wife. Pick up the phone. I call your wife. I said, I can pick up the phone? He's like, technically, you're not in prison anymore.
You're free, bro.
And I was like, oh, shit. So, pick up the phone, no answer. No answer, no answer. I don't remember a lot of phone numbers. I'm calling, hold on, no answer. No one is answering my phone.
She's late.
No, this ain't happening.
She's late. First phone call.
Finally, I come. She answers. I'll never forget. She was like, "We'll be there in an hour." I said, "What?" I listen. I was so hurt. It hurt me. I'm sitting there and because of my situation, they just didn't want to, they're not just going to put me out the door.
The COs knew she was going to be late, bro.
I leave the premises safely. And I was so embarrassed to tell the unit manager. She said, no, she said, I told you. I was like, oh.
You mess around, leave him outside, and he get popped off right out front. Who does that land on, huh? What happened? He was sitting out there waiting an hour for wifey, and then what else happened? The cartel came through and chewed him up.
To me. And I was like, wow. Just sitting there, and they're like, you want to use the phone? Go ahead and just call your wife back. Make sure she gets here. And I was like, oh, okay. And called her back. I said, I could talk to you on the phone. Wow. And I don't have to use the operators don't have to tell me I'm being recorded. It was wow. That was the first glimpse of being free that I felt, which was amazing. And yeah, she got there a little bit, an hour and 20 minutes later.
Don't get it twisted. I felt so bad because there's a whole entourage. And
you were being recorded, bro.
And everyone has to wait in order to release Jay, to make sure that, he's safe, our family's safe.
It's a big process, isn't it? What you think it's armed guards taking you.
Yeah.
And they waited, and now she has everyone waiting. I felt really embarrassed.
But when I got out of the car, everyone was like, okay, I get it. I broke my foot the night before. I was trying to run around the house and make everything perfect. That's what I do. I want to lay everything out and make sure everything looks. You know what? I always tell her, you're so worried about everything else that you lose focus on what's important. I just wanted to make sure, like,
but you know what? No matter what.
I charged Jay's toothbrush. I wanted to make sure he had...
Val got weak-ass ankles, man. Or strong-ass ankles. She blew an ankle out in a prison escape, and she blew an ankle out on a prison release, man. What the fuck is going on?
He had his, like, everything he could possibly need, like his slippers. Like, I was like, my mind just goes to the most simplest things of what he's gonna need, and I just wanted to make everything perfect for him. And
no matter what, it was special.
I ended up just running outside and putting up all of the Christmas lights. It was just barely November. I had the landscapers out there just trying to make everything so nice for him. And I ended up tripping over.
While the feds is asking, oh yeah? Where y'all getting all this landscaping money? You want to explain this landscaping money to me, huh? Who paid for that ankle insurance? You know what I'm saying? That's what they want to know at that time. That's what they was asking.
One of the cables outside, and I completely broke my foot.
I was surprised to see that. I was like, what is going on? And it was hard, but you know, it didn't take away. Like once I was there, and once I felt like I still couldn't believe I felt free. Like no shackles, no, and. Of course, it was emotional. All my kids were there. And we just stood there just crying in tears.
Crying. It was so surreal.
And then they were like, you got to go. Like, be there. You have to go. So I had to jump in the car, and it was like, I still remember my son, you know, just kind of quiet, look at me. He was happy, had a smile on his face. And he kind of hugged me, and I'm like, I told you. I was not always going to be there.
That's your youngest, who had never actually lived with you. He'd only ever known you in prison.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he could not even, like, comprehend that his dad one day was going to be able to walk out that door. Like, he didn't even, he's like, there's no way. Are you sure? He never thought that he would be released from prison.
Mm-hmm. It's weird. I was lost of words. Like, I was just like this feeling of fulfillment. It's hard to describe. And I'm there just, it was really emotional, and just me wanting to like touch him and just, you know, hug him. Yeah, hug. And you know, I had the advantage of being home a little sooner than my brother because of the time difference. I was there with my...
Damn, Jay, you got the advantage again? Yo. Poor Peter, man. What the hell? Buddy can't catch a break.
My kids, and eventually I reached out to my two nieces and my nephew, so I was like, hey, oh my God. Like,
called them.
And they're crying, and
they were in tears.
We were on FaceTime.
They were so excited. They were so anxious.
Which was weird,
they were waiting for their dad.
I'm still getting used to like, I was FaceTime, you could actually see them, and, you know, like, that was different.
Technology.
So it was like, this is so weird.
This is so different. Like, this is so weird. And like, this could have made my business so much easier. You know, just
Don't forget that Jay and Pete went to prison in 2000.
Did you hear that? This could have made my business so much easier. It's the way they're wired, man. It ain't necessarily their fault they're wired that way. It's just the way they're wired. The old man had them wired since 7 years old. He thinking FaceTime, how much FaceTime would have helped him in the hustle? You know what I'm saying? How much you would have known who you talking to, know who you texting with, you know what I'm saying? Without question. But it's just the way they're wired. Here he is, 12 years out the joint, still thinking about this, the way they're wired.
This could have made my business so much easier. You know?
Don't forget that Jay and Pete went to prison in 2008, 2 years before FaceTime existed. Jay had never seen FaceTime. In fact, when they went to prison, the original iPhone had only been out for a year. The twins started their business back in the days of the Nokia 3210. Jay settled in at home. Across the country, Pete was preparing to leave.
I can't even imagine like the day was really coming. I had like a little homemade little calendar that I kept on me. It's just a little legal paper, like look, just wrote my own little lines on the dates and I crossed them out.
So when the day came, what happened?
I didn't sleep. I don't think anyone could sleep. I was like, I had my room clean. I cleaned my cell, toilet, everything, folded and everything, grabbed my old blankets and folded my mattress and left everything like the way it should be. And I think that every person who's done a long time has that little thought, like, is this really gonna happen for me? I remember that, like, who's coming at you? Yeah, your wife can't be here. I think they were gonna take someone to court, whatever, like, to live here at 9. I was like, 9? You know, I'm mad that my brother's gonna be out earlier because he's, you know, he was in a different time zone.
There it is.
And they called me to the office. They're like, could your wife be here any earlier? I'm like, yes.
She always late.
She can. And then she wasn't answering my call. I'm like,
what? Double up. Think of the irony in all of that, though. You know what I'm saying? You done made phone calls. You done made billboards. Y'all done flew kites to each other. Y'all done communicated through years and years of all of this. And then when it counts, when it's going down, you get that unlucky missed call that wouldn't have probably happened otherwise. That's life, though. That's life. That's hilarious.
Anyways, but like walking out on a beautiful sunny day and just early in the morning and not feeling good. I was down like 20 pounds. I was down to like 130. I had a Osama bin Laden beard. You know, we weren't allowed to get haircuts. And my hair was ridiculously long. And I remember like pulling the cart out. Like I had a couple boxes with my belongings. I don't know what to tell you, man. I know the joy I felt to see my family there. To feel like we made it. Like, I can't tell you what it was to my kids there, you know? No, they look more beautiful than ever. It's like, I couldn't, like, I wanted to leave, like, let's go. And I really, like, closed the door, and I was like, I jumped in the back seat, because my sister was in the front. And the kids there was just looking at me. I didn't know what to say. I was speechless. Like, really speechless. That says a lot for someone like me who talks a lot.
It must have been so surreal.
It was so not really like to think that I would be free in America. I would be free in the USA and like back in the States and free.
Yeah, you team
America. The last time you were free in America was when you were like 22, 23, right?
I was 22.
So you've not really been free in America in your adulthood.
Yeah, I wanted to, I can't tell you what it felt like to, I wanted to hold my kids, hold everyone. And I remember my kids being real like, Dad, like, you're really here, like, you're not in khakis.
And think about that. These guys, American guys, get into the business, become fugitives in America, go to Mexico, which has to be their second home, and then get pretty much exiled. These dudes are exiled on Main Street. These guys was basically exiled from both their countries. Over there, because the big bad wolf want to get them, and over here, because the other big bad wolf want to get them. Exiled on Main Street. Men with no home, no country.
Yeah, I'm really here. I could see in their eyes that they had like a million questions. Like, they're just like, what's next for us? Like, I remember just telling them, just don't look back, man. Let's look forward to our future, you know? Not saying that we could forget that past, but let's just change the view a little bit because it was such a long time.
And you didn't want them to literally look behind.
Yeah, man. That's 12 years is a long time. And my kids never seen me outside that prison to that day. They never see me like eat like a normal food. They never really got to see how I smell or see me in without my shirt on or in my underwear like normal kids will see their father or like do something for them. My wife, just know that what she felt to see them with their father, what it meant to her, too, you know?
I see Peter, he's coming out, and he has like a cart with two the prison guards. So he has a cart, like a book cart, and he has like boxes, and we were just looking at him, oh my God. But it was like almost silence in the car. Silence, like just watching him. He opens the trunk and he puts his things in there, and then he gets in the car, and It was really surreal to see him, like, just see his presence, just be in his presence. And the kids were there, and he got in the back seat, and the kids were just, he was just holding the kids. He didn't know, like, touching their hair, and I don't know, they were crying and then happy, and they were just overjoyed, like, just to finally have him here.
Yeah, the kids don't know what's what. They don't know nothing about no cartel. They don't know no Chapo. They don't know none of that. They're like, what? They're minding their business. So I'm sure it was a big deal for them.
I was nervous, and I mean, I haven't been this close to him in 12 years, almost 13 years. So it was really difficult for me.
It's a lie, y'all made a baby.
When he hugged me, I almost felt like I was trembling, like my body was a little trembling, a little nervous. I kind of avoided him.
Yeah,
like, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to wash the dishes. And I'm gonna...
I was like, what is wrong with you?
But after a while, you know, the kids wanted to have a movie night. So we laid blankets on the floor and we put a movie on. And they were just, everyone was just so happy. And still, they couldn't take their eyes off of him.
Come on, you gotta tell the funny part.
What? Oh,
like,
so we escaped.
Honestly, you know, they're young. I mean, they're old enough to like, our mom and dad gonna do something. It's funny, right?
Yeah, they're really well aware. They're really smart
just
kids.
Weird, like.
And they're like, you left us. You didn't even finish the movie. But they're understanding,
funny,
and they're funny. They're really funny kids. Yeah, really mature for their age.
I mean, well, I laugh because it's weird that they made it so awkward for us.
And then my sister-in-law was there, and she was like, leave your mom and dad alone.
Yes, they're talking about the S word, sex. The last time Pete and Viv were intimate in that way was back when they were cooperating in the government offices in Chicago. Remember the 3 Bs? The first B, the baby? Whilst I was talking to Pete, he called his youngest daughter to chat about the day he came home from prison.
Hello.
Hi, lovely. How are you?
Oh, wow.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I was telling Charlie about...
Whew, there it is. That's heavy. To hear a kid's voice after all of the shit that we've heard on this show. After all of the horrible, graphic things that we've heard on this show, to hear a baby's voice was a little shocking right now. And to hear that's, one of the baby from the 3 Bs, you know what I'm saying? And Charlie did let the cat out the bag that she spoke to some of the children on record, which is crazy. So this should be interesting.
Hello.
Hi, lovely. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
I was telling Charlie about the day I came home.
Yeah.
And I was telling her how you were just staring at us like the whole time. And Mom was avoiding me.
Yeah, I think that we were all so shocked. It was like, oh my gosh, he's out of prison. And it's funny because I remember every little sentence he said that day. Well, when he first got in the car, he didn't say anything, but he told me specifically, he put me that, he whispered in my ear, don't look back. Just keep your eyes on the road. And then when he got home, he was just mesmerized by the house, having a home. So then when he went into his room, he was he laid on the bed, and then he was just touring the house. And then when he finally ate a good warm meal, because of COVID, he couldn't have warm meals, so he was just focusing on his food, and we didn't really eat. We were just looking at him the whole time. Just
Was I eating funny?
Yeah, you were eating good. You're eating good, I think. Yeah. I just remember you being like, oh my God, this is my first meal. So my sister and I are really, really excited. We had a whole night planned out where we were watching with our favorite movies or whatever, or series, and me and my sister got all ready. And I was like, Dad, like, Mom, let's go. And so my sister and I were waiting on the couch for them for like 5 hours. I was like, oh my, okay, let's just go to bed. I'm tired. She's like, yeah, it's alright.
They weren't coming back, shorty. They're here for the fourth B, another baby. El Padrino asked, why put the kids on? To humanize him? I wouldn't risk it. I think that's part of it, maybe. Part of it from the production side of things. You know, let's find a way for people to, you know, to look at them as more than just rats, cooperators or snitches or whatever you want to call them, or cartel drug dealers. Because look, man, there's levels to this. You're going to have, you know, the regular suburban Karen housewife that looks down on anybody that doesn't get money, you know what I'm saying, the way she would want them to get money, the unrealistic ways that she would want them to get money. They say, oh, them dirtbag drug dealers, right? That's one level of it. Then you get all the way down to dirtbag drug dealers shitting on you because now you've cooperated, so now you a rat to the lowest of the low, who they consider the lowest of the low. You a rat to them. So I'm sure they was trying to humanize him a little bit. El Padrino said, I wouldn't risk it. I don't know about what kind of risk it is. I mean, it's audio. Is it intrusive to the kid? Maybe. Maybe the kid's well adjusted enough to know her situation, know her daddy's situation, and be like, let me talk about it. In a sense, as long as they ain't exploiting the children, you know, that, you know, I don't want to hear, you know, Cartel Kids, the reality series. That's a whole different story. You know what I'm saying? I honestly took a lot more from what that little girl just had to say than a lot of the shit that I've been hearing for a long time. That was insightful. You know what I'm saying? The way she saw it. That'll stick with her forever. For the rest of her life, when her daddy's dead and gone and she's a grown woman with children of her own, she's going to tell her kids, do not look back. You know what I'm saying? That is a part of her life now. No matter what they did, no matter whatever, at the end of the day, that's part of her life now. That motto, that saying, and the action of doing so. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. You could say that they just did it only to humanize them, but I think it was a kid I can trust wholeheartedly. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to something like this. So I actually enjoyed that tiny little piece right there. Chucky, they want the attention almost like 6ix9ine. There's a difference. 6ix9ine wants attention. I don't know that the twins want attention, and I don't know that they want to change your mind, but they want to get a story across, and they want to get they want something positive to come out of it. I believe that's why the podcast happened. You don't see them everywhere like you see everybody else. They're not just asking ask me anything questions like Sammy the Bull. You know what I'm saying? They're doing podcasts with 50 and working on what did Charlie say, the TV stuff and this, that. Whatever they're doing, they're going to tell a story. 6ix9ine, on the other hand, that's all attention. Look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. I ran it and I'm still outside. Look at me. You know, that's different. He took a hood out. You know what I'm saying? He used the hood, took him out, now he walk around through there. He's looking for attention. He not trying to do shit. He not selling his movie. Who wants to buy the 6ix9ine movie? I don't know. I don't see it. Upper Echelon. I think it's great for people to hear how the decisions of their parents affect them. Hopefully before it's too late. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and not only them, other kids, you know, here, or other kids that can relate to the situation. There's a lot of kids who got parents in jail. There's a lot of kids who suffer the bullying of the things that their parents did, the decisions that their parents made, and we don't hear them. We deaf to them. We hear ourselves, we hear our opinions, but we don't hear the kids. So I agree. That was very insightful. I thought it was done tastefully also. Once I start hearing, what's her face, Cartel Charlie, if she starts kind of like prodding at the kids for information, see, Shorty right here, Shorty felt happy to tell her story. But once you start poking for information, now that's a whole different story.
After spending so much time with the Flores family, I felt like I'd gotten to know them pretty well. We had spoken about so much and delved into their deepest emotions together. Some of the things we got into and have shared on this podcast, they'd never talked about before. By this point, I got to know the children quite well too. I was struck by the fact that, despite everything, they were also close. And the way the kids were with their fathers, and vice versa, you'd never really have known that they'd been in prison the majority of their children's lives.
I would take the children to go see Peter at least twice a year over the years, just so that way he was always a part of our children's lives, and vice versa when it comes to Peter's children, because I think Jay and Peter have this connection to where they almost feel like these are all of their kids, all of their children like together. One family. And when I would see Peter, it was like almost shocking to me, because I'd sit there and watch him with Viv and watch him with the kids. And I felt like I was almost looking in from a lens, which was so weird, because I was just seeing me and Jay and the way that Jay would interact with me and the way he would interact with our children. And it was everything when it comes to body gestures, when it comes to body language, when it comes to body movement, when it comes to conversations, when it came to everything. And I used to come back and tell Jay, like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I feel like I'm looking at our family, like watching from a camera. And it was just like unreal to see.
Over the 12 years that Pete and Jay were in prison, the family, including the kids, spent nearly every weekend visiting them, with the exception of COVID, and that's only because they weren't physically allowed to visit. And of course, the few months in a safe house leading up to their sentencing. There are fathers that aren't in prison that see their children less.
Some of y'all in the chat over here, y'all all seeing y'all kids. Y'all better go see y'all kids, man. Cut the shit.
Because the twins were moved around the country so much, their families also had to move to be with them. This meant the kids were constantly changing schools, though it wasn't like they were able to have close friends anyway. The kids had to hide their own identities. They were never allowed to talk about their family, where they were from, or reveal anything about their backgrounds. The kids had to be as hypervigilant as their parents. Even now that Jay and Pete are out of prison, the children are still hypervigilant about their own identities being revealed and wake up every morning wondering if their fathers are going to get taken away from them again. I sat down with all the children to understand what it was like for them. This is Pete's daughter again, who you just heard on the phone.
It was like every single holiday and birthday. That's all I wanted. It's for my dad. Come home. My dad would always he always tried to be honest with us. I remember when we were I think 4 years old. I was at school and I had a friend and I told her that my dad was in a cage. I was really curious about everything, because as much as my dad tried to explain everything to us and what he did, I still couldn't understand it. So I remember Googling stuff, and me just reading it. It just all came together, about his whole life.
That's it. You can't escape that Google. That Google is on you, boy. That Google is not. You could tell your kids back in the day. You could lie to your kids, but that Google, they were like, ding, 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 ding. Now they know everything about you, and now you got a problem. I wonder how much their kids really know. I wonder how much their kids know about all of it. Probably doesn't even matter to them at this point. Listen, man, my niece asks me a question about what's this, that. I throw her a bullshit answer. I just did myself a disservice because she going to Google.
I think I was scared to know, because I did 1,152 days with him.
1,152 days
in prison. Yes. When he told me, I think I started to think more, and I was why would you do that? You didn't think about us. I think I became a little more I was upset. And then having to go home, and then going home to you have to put on this costume, where your home life is. No one knew anything about my home life, like at school, like no one knew. It was just my mom and my brother, and that's all. So it was just like having to deal with keeping that secret in from like everybody.
Yo, very well-spoken young lady, very in tune with how she feels, very articulate, you know what I'm saying? And it makes you wonder, you know, how much it is to the twins and to the wives. Is this, I don't know if they, you know, see therapists or talk to therapists, but how much of unpacking all of this is part of the therapy, you know what I'm saying? Like, because there's no way that they got all different kind of post-traumatic stress disorders, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of us do. A lot of us buried enough just to have that, you know what I'm saying? But very well-adjusted young lady, and again, this unravels and this unfolds and it comes out, doesn't stay locked away, doesn't stay unsaid. They get to say it to each other, in front of each other. The parents get to know exactly what the child's feeling so that they can address those things up close and personal. I'm not mad at it at all. Like I said, once it becomes an exploitation thing, and now there's a reality series, and you know Pete and Jay's kids are beefing with El Mini League's kids, or this fool or that fool. Now that's when it becomes exploitation. It's a whole other thing.
It's not just their fathers that the kids are worried about. It's their mothers too. Within 6 months of Pete and Jay getting out of prison, SWAT teams surrounded each of their houses in the early hours of the morning and arrested Val and Viv on money laundering charges.
Dang.
When I got indicted,
no rest.
Me and Viviana, I felt like we knew it was coming. We told our children that the feds would come one day and they'd come into the house. And they would possibly take us and arrest us and put us in prison. That was the hardest thing I think we ever had to do.
The kids were all home when their mothers were arrested. We'll get to how it all unfolded in the next episode.
I remember just like waking up in the morning, my dad being like, gotta get up. And then they put her in handcuffs and we went in the car, and then I just remember, so I was like kind of like, I didn't comprehend it yet. I think I was in shock because I didn't think that it would happen. And I remember my dad just like breaking down. And so my mom told me before she left, just like, stay strong. I got up and I was like, I woke my brother up and I just told him, and then I walked out of the room and I just started cleaning and cooking for everybody, trying to make everything as normal as possible.
You know, there's no time to look back when the future's still a pain in the ass. You know what I'm saying? When tomorrow's a problem. Unbelievable story. It doesn't get close to easing up. I told you they front ended this season with a bunch of slow, you know, and this is what the courthouse looked like, and there was a staircase, and to the left of the staircase there was 100 cops, and to the right there was reporters, and to the left there was sucias, and it's like, yo, the last couple of episodes they've been getting to the gusto. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode as well. We had the sickness portion of it, where the feds just tried to kill Jay, basically, or the COs tried to kill Jay, basically. He did 56 days in the hospital and numerous surgeries. That's a lot. The ladies, this is not stereotypical. You know, sometimes y'all are late, okay? Val was late that day, all right? But she had a good excuse. She done smashed her ankle up again. It happens. The kids, when Charlie said it on the Johnny Mitchell podcast, I didn't know how I felt about it. I was like, do we even want to hear from the kids? Because, like, what do you know about this situation? You know how it affected you, yes, but, you know, why do we have to talk to the kids? But I don't think they were, I don't know that they were exploiting their kids. It didn't get there yet. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if it plans to, but they're telling their story. It's part of their story. We can't want what we want for the story when it's their story. And it's not just Jay and Peter's story. It's not just Vivi and Val's story. It's that little girl's story. It's the rest of the kids' story. And if they feel like speaking about them, then they have every right. Is it dangerous? Maybe. Maybe this should be as far as it goes. I like the way it was handled. I didn't hear her poking at her. They let the girl speak. They asked for clarification when they needed it, and that was cool, you know what I'm saying? Even in episode 9, the next episode that comes next week, you're going to get to hear from a kid's point of view what it's like for her parents to get raided. That's a different look right there, you know? A lot of kids don't know, and a lot of parents don't know who haven't been raided, how it affects a kid. So maybe something like that will affect somebody and say, yeah, man, I can't be in this business because I can't let this happen to my kid. If that story's out there, then that's cool. There's something positive coming out of that. So yeah, I thought she was gonna exploit them a little bit, but I ain't seen it. But again, if we see them, you know, beefing with Mayo's grandkids on a reality show, that's a problem. Think Like a Kingpin in the chat said, man, it's about sharing the point of view from an innocent kid and letting the audience know how it affects the kid. Absolutely. And you heard it. That little girl ain't here for no clout. She ain't sitting here telling y'all a story from a lying place. I believe the shorty before I believe the adults. All adults I take with a grain of salt. Every last one that exists, I take with a grain of salt. The kids, even though there's lying ass kids, not when it's like that, she don't know how to cover that up. It's her life, it's her experience. Did they put the shorties there to humanize them? That's probably part of it. You know what I'm saying? Do they need some humanizing? Production is always going to say that. Do they care to be humanized? I don't know. Probably not. It's been a long time. They did their thing. They still fighting for their family to survive. But I wanted to see if they was going to exploit the shorty. I ain't hear no exploitation. Shorty told her story, how she felt. Going through a story like that, I think had they not had each other to lean on, shit, a couple of them might have ended themselves a long time ago. Even going through hell, to have a support system that's still gonna be there tomorrow, that probably makes all the difference in the world. When you got as much money as they were making, they were targets before they cooperated. That type of shit just doesn't, that ain't gonna change after you cooperate. You still a wanted man? You was always a wanted man. It is what it is.